Hey everyone, I'm Quinlan, real estate photographer and videographer. And in today's video, we're going to talk about ways that you can market your real estate photography business. Let's look into it. So let's look at different ways that you can market your real estate photography business. Number one, I think you have to have a business card. I know it's old and antiquated, but real estate agents still use business cards all the time. And it's one of the first things they'll ask for is, oh, do you have a card? Now, sometimes they just get trashed, but here's another thing you can do is I have two different types of business cards. I have a small version, like everyday version, and then I also have the big version. So the cool thing about the big version is I have all of my pricing on the back of it. So when real estate agents, not only does that just not get trashed quite as fast, usually it'll get tucked inside their notebook. Maybe it gets trashed later, maybe not. But a lot of times they'll hang on to it because they know that they can look back and see your pricing when they get a new client. So that's my number one tip is you got to have a business card and think about having something that you can give them that has your pricing right on it. Another useful way to market your real estate photography business is through email. Now there's a couple different ways to use email. The first way is you could just go on to the local real estate agent websites and try and find email addresses and then send a couple of those agents an emails introducing yourself and saying who you are. It may or may not be effective, but it's a good way to get your foot in the door to some of those realtors, and so they start hearing your name. Now the second way, and probably a little more effective, is to, after a while, build up a list of all of the real estate agents, maybe ones you've worked with and ones you haven't worked with, ones you've collected business cards. Now this would be a little ways down the road, but you take those business cards and you form an email list. And after a while, you could literally get hundreds of emails for real estate agents. Once you have that list established, you can now send out reminders and updates every couple weeks or at least once a month. Not only are you able to show what you have going on in your business, if you want to offer some sort of new service or you want to offer a special or some kind of deal, this is a great way not only to get your name out there, but to keep yourself relevant. Because sometimes, you're not the first thing on every real estate agent's mind. You're just not the first thing there, right? You're the afterthought of once they get the client and how they're going to get the client. Finally, when they're going to sit down with their client and sign those papers, then they think, oh yeah, I got to get some good pictures. So a good way to keep yourself relevant is to keep sending some emails, but don't overdo it. You don't want 2 a day or maybe not even 2 a week, right? Maybe once every 2 weeks to kind of keep yourself relevant. Maybe once a month to keep yourself relevant, because you don't want to overdo it and have real estate agents start to block you because they think that you're pestering or harassing them, and you don't want that kind of reputation. So that's a good way to use email. Let's look at the next one. Another way to market your business is just straight cold calls. Now you could get phone numbers of your local real estate agents and give them a call or a text to introduce yourself and tell them what you've got going on. I don't think that that's necessarily a great idea, but if you are a really good salesman and you have kind of a little bit of a pitch put together that you think will hook them in and draw them in to keep listening to you, then by all means, this may be an effective way for you. I don't think it's an effective way for me. I don't think I have that salesman pitch. I'm always worried that that I've caught them at a bad time, or that they're just way too busy to listen to my pitch, but it may be effective. Another way of marketing that may be effective is good old-fashioned snail mail. Making up a flyer or a cool old poster and putting it in the mail to some of your real estate agents or their offices. Now I know this may sound antiquated, but there's a little bit of reverse psychology here. I think people now are getting more inundated with emails, and they're quicker to just delete emails that aren't from people that they know. So I think that they will get rid of ads fast on email. But I think people get less actual mail now And so they may actually open your letter because it would be odd. It wouldn't look like the normal letter, and they may think, oh, what's this? And it's harder to just throw away a letter without opening it than it is to just delete an email, because you can see in the header of the email and a little bit of the text what it is and who it's from. And so people may be quicker to delete that, but if you send out some snail mail, they may actually open it and take a look at it. A little bit of old school reverse psychology. Something to think about. So this next tip is something I definitely think you should do. Once you get your business cards printed up, and probably something that has your pricing on it, start going around to your local real estate agent businesses. Go to their storefront. You may not ever get past the secretary, but at least introduce yourself and just say, hey, could you take some of these cards and put them in the real estate agent's boxes? That is a pretty effective way. And if you're nice and courteous, sometimes the secretary will say, hey, well, I can introduce you around because we've been looking for somebody. Maybe there'll be a real estate agent there who says, oh yeah, I was just thinking about that. I really need somebody. It's just a good way to get your foot in the door. The next marketing tip that you can try is to give a presentation at the real estate agent's office. So they will have sales meetings usually once a week or maybe once a month, depending on how big their agency is and what kind of space they need. But some of the agencies in my area allow vendors to come in and give a short presentation before their meeting so that the real estate agents can be up to date on what vendors there are. Now, these vendors can range from plumbers and electricians and stagers and you name it, anything that kind of goes along with a house. Some people will go and give a presentation, but you can get your name on that list and go give a presentation. Now, that can be good and bad, right? You have to be decent at giving a presentation and making it look professional. If you're not to that level yet, don't do this, because you could then scare potential clients away if you don't think you're decent at putting together a presentation. But it's definitely a good way of getting your name out there and getting in front of a bunch of people who would then like you and maybe work with you. So another great way to get business as a real estate photographer is through referrals. But referrals aren't easy. Remember that when people give somebody a referral, that referral also reflects back on them. So if your business is just so-so or even mediocre, people are going to be hesitant to even recommend you. So you kind of have to get your game up to a really certain level where people think it's amazing before they want to put their own name on the line out and give a referral, because they know that that referral reflects back on them too. Now, it may not stop them from using you if they think your stuff is mediocre, because maybe you work great for them. Maybe they just really like you. Maybe that they think that your pictures are good enough and they don't want to pay a higher price for more. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they will refer you to somebody else, because they know that that reflects on them. So referrals are a great way, but you really have to get your game stepped up so that it's amazing and that no one would put in question whether that's good work or not. That's another tip. So another great way of marketing your real estate photography business is to work with people that work with real estate agents. So by that I mean, earlier when I talked about going and giving a presentation, that they have other vendors that come in and give presentations, like maybe roofers or plumbers or stagers or house inspectors. You can get a hold of these people and work out kind of a deal where you can refer each other. So when you come in contact with a real estate agent, sometimes when they ask you to take pictures, they'll be like, do you know of any good stagers that I could have to stage this house? So you could work with a stager and then they would refer you and you would refer them. Same thing for several other types of businesses, to get on their lists, because a lot of times real estate agents will just have a list of vendors that they like to work with. Because when they go to list a house, sometimes it needs a new roof and somebody will say, hey, what roof would I, who's the roofer I would call for my house before I put it on the market? Or this plumbing issue needs to be fixed before we can put it on the market. So sometimes you could work with those different vendors and get your names out so that you are giving each other's names. So when a realtor is building their vendor list, you would definitely be on that, and they would hear your name from other vendors. It's a great way to kind of sneak your name in, kind of through a back door. Give it a try. Okay, so this is my last tip, and maybe so far has been my most effective, and that is to just going to open houses of real estate agents. Almost every weekend in my area, there are open houses. You can go onto the real estate website of different businesses in your area. So let's say Remax or Century 21 or whoever it is. You can get on their website and they will show you open houses that are going on in your area. You can make a list of those open houses and go and talk to real estate agents one-on-one. And I find this to be the easiest way for me to get business. So here's how I do it. First of all, if it's really busy, you don't go in. Find another house. A lot of times though, realtors will sit at a house for 2 or 3 hours and maybe only have 1 or 2 people show up at their open house. And when that happens, then I will go in when they're free and clear and show them what I'm all about. And usually they're bored and they are very receptive to seeing what you have. So here's how I do it. I show up and I tell them right away, hi, this is who I am and this is what I'm about. The second thing I do is I say, if you've got a second, I'll show you what my stuff looks like. Now what I do is I have my iPad up and I will just sit there and say, hey, here's some of my stuff. And you want to do this pretty quick, right? And the reason being is that their time is kind of valuable and you never know when that next person is going to walk in the door and then they're going to want to show that house to them at the open house. So usually it's, hi, my name is, and try and get their name, try and get their business card and say, if you've got 2 seconds, can I show you what some of my stuff looks like? More often than not, they're like, sure, that's fine. So you flip through what some of your stuff looks like. You get a business card or two, like we talked about, that small version and the big one. I give both out. That way they have something for their wallet and they've got their pricing card. So if they ever need to give you a call, it's right there. And then if you've got a couple seconds and no one walks in and they are starting to ask questions about your pictures and your turnaround time, you know that they're showing some interests. You can also ask questions like, hey, do you use professional real estate photography in any of your listings? Do you have to have a certain base amount dollar before you, of the home before you look for real estate photographers? And you can start to get a little idea of where they're at in their career and if they are the type that are looking for real estate photographers or, videography if you do that too. I have found this to be the most effective way. I've gotten calls 6 months or a year later after I've talked to somebody and say, hey, you stopped by one of my open houses and I still have your card. Do you still do pictures? And boom, you're set up. In my business, I've found that to be the most effective way. Now, it can be the long road, right? Because open houses on a day, let's say, even if on a Saturday, a lot of times the earliest you'll see one is 11 and the latest you'll see one is 4. Most of them are between 1 and 3, so only a couple hours. And so you can only get out to so many that day. Like if you can hit, I think I've hit as low as like 4 in a day and maybe as high as 11 or 12 in a day. Because you have to drive to each one and then stop and take time hopefully to talk to that agent and introduce yourself and get in there, maybe wait for some people to leave. If there's only one couple in there, you may wait for them to leave. So that takes a little bit of time. So it's not a blanket way like some of the other ideas I gave you, but it's a great way to get one-on-one time with a realtor where they don't have anything else to do. They're in business mode because they're in business, they're doing business while they're at the open house. And you've got them captivated. So it's a good way to get your pictures in front of them and show them exactly what you do. That's what I like. So those are some of my favorite ways to market my real estate photography and videography business. If you have other ways, please, by all means, put them in the comments below and let me know. If you think some of these were new and useful to you, also put that in the comments down below. I'd appreciate it if you subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and I can't wait to talk to you in the next video. Thanks, everybody.